Welcome to another edition of Christy's Court on the Field of 68 Network. I'm Christy Renner-Scott, and I am just over the moon, filled with joy to welcome Tamika Catchings to the podcast today. 10-time All-Star, won a championship in the WNBA in 2012, Rookie of the Year in 2002, and 5 times Defensive Player of the Year in the WNBA, 4 gold medals, and the list goes on, and we'll get to that. But Tamika, you know I love you, and I appreciate you carving out some time with us today.
Oh, no, thank you for having me, Christy. It's an honor to be alongside of you.
Oh, my goodness. Well, let's take a walk back down memory lane, all the way back to maybe your elementary time. And what was basketball like for you then, if you started playing that early? I know your dad, Harvey, played in the NBA, so you were definitely around the game a lot.
Yeah, we grew up with it. And I would say from my personal experience, I started playing when I was in 3rd grade. We moved back up here to Chicago. So in Deerfield, Illinois, that's where we started, just kind of like in the Park District. And I just remember mom and dad signing us up. The 3rd grade was my first organized basketball. So my dad was our coach, and my sister and I, we were on an all boys team. So you talk about feisty. One thing growing up, I've always said is I just wanted to always be better than the boys, and they were my competition. So started in the Park District, and kind of we played a little bit of every sport. So we were those kids that were running from basketball practice to softball practice to soccer practice, and and track. And I did the band for a little bit. My mom put me in gymnastics. I like to tell people we played just about every sport but hockey. That was probably the only sport my mom didn't trust us in. Even football, we played football.
I was going to ask that next. I was like, even football, because hockey is a little extra with the sticks and everything, but football too. Wow. What position in football did you play?
Well, I would have to say playground football, but I was I was the one girl that was on the field with all the boys and running into the fences, trying to jump over the fence. I mean, yeah, you name it, I did it.
You did it. I understand it. That's awesome. But that competitive fire, I'm sure, was evident in every single sport that you played, because, I mean, just what we said at the beginning, just all of the things that you've accomplished throughout your career started somewhere. So in 3rd grade, that's when you fell in love with the game. And when you had some off the court challenges with your hearing, tell us about what that was like for you during that time, elementary age.
Well, I'll be honest. I threw my hearing aids out when I was in 2nd grade, and we lived in Abilene, Texas at that point in time. So we moved around a lot early on, with my dad playing in the NBA and then getting traded to different teams. Played for 11 seasons. So, last couple of years, then we moved to Italy for a year, moved back to Abilene, Texas when I was in 2nd grade. That's the year I threw my hearing aids out. 3rd grade, we moved back up to Chicago, and was in Chicago really from 3rd grade until my sophomore year of high school. But even living in Chicago, we lived in different neighborhoods. So we went to different schools even while we were here, before my mom and I moved back down to Texas, and then I went to Tennessee. So say all that to say it was definitely an adventure early on. And, sport for me was really kind of how I was able to overcome my hearing disability, because I felt like through sports, there were a lot of times like I could, people would make fun of me, but if I went and practiced and got really, really good at something, then I would come back and say, okay, well, let's go play basketball, or let's go play tennis, or whatever sport it was that we were involved in at that point in time. And I would say for me personally, I didn't fall in love with basketball until I was in 7th grade. 3rd grade, I started playing, and it was kind of like another sport that we played amongst all the other ones. But 7th grade was when I made my first goal to be in the NBA and follow my dad's footsteps. And it was just kind of like my own journey of becoming me and becoming a part of something that I love.
Oh my goodness. That's so beautiful. What was it in your 7th grade year, 13, 14 years old? What was it that clicked and said, this is what I want to do?
I don't know what it was. I don't know if there was like one moment, but I just remember, every day, it was dedicated and committed to like playing basketball. And, I think it just became a point, and probably hearing the other guys, like hearing the boys that I played with, like talking about going to the NBA. And I remember at one time I said, well, I want to be in the NBA too. And they just laughed. And they're like, girls don't play in the NBA. And it's like, okay, I'm gonna show you that they can play in the NBA. And I mean, I think my whole life has been, and I shouldn't say this like dedicated, but I think my whole life, as I'm sure a lot of other people that are listening to this, you've always been told what you can't do and what you won't be able to do. And that's the thing that has motivated you.
Absolutely. I'm on that list. I'm on that list because it is a strong motivating force. And while it is trying to prove others wrong, you're also proving yourself right at the same time, which I think is so motivating as well. But you spoke about how you spent a year in Italy. Your dad played professionally in the NBA, like you said, for 11 years, but then went overseas and played in Italy for a year. And that's when you were connected with Joe Bryant, Kobe Bryant, the late, great, iconic Kobe Bryant. That's his dad. And you all were around the same age at that time. How did you get to know Kobe during that time of your life?
Well, it's interesting. I was in first grade. He was in second grade. And of course, I have an older brother and sister. And, Kobe has his sisters. So it was one of those things, like our parents played together. So Jelly Bean Bryant, my dad, Harvey, they played together in Philly. And then my dad got traded from Philly to Milwaukee. And then he went from Milwaukee to the LA Clippers before we went overseas. And at that point, Joe Bryant left Philly and moved to Italy. But when we got to Italy, they weren't on the same team. They were on different teams. But one of the most important things, I think, from a family standpoint, was making sure that all of us kids had an opportunity to play with each other. And I say this a lot, but there weren't a lot of African-American families just like walking around in Italy. So it's really important for our family just to make sure that we got together. And, everybody always asked, well, what was it like? Like, what was Kobe like? And I said, we were kids. You think about any kid in first and second grade, we were those, ambitious, just all out dedicated. I mean, soccer was our first sport. You think about Italy, they play soccer over there. And that's kind of what we were engaged in. Our fathers played basketball, so we were around the game. But I think from a standpoint of, did we know we were going to be professional basketball players in first and second grade? Definitely not. It was just something that soccer was our sport, but getting together, when the family got together, we toured a lot of Italy and, saw a lot of the really cool sites. And I don't remember us ever talking about like, one day I'm going to be a professional basketball player. Like that was not thought of at that early of an age.
Right. It's still beautiful and how the stars align. And we'll get to that as we continue with your next step, coming back to the States. And you played at two different high schools, but you ended up at Duncanville High School in Texas. And you were an amazing basketball player. But tell us another sport that you played that you excelled in as well at the high school level.
Volleyball. Yeah, I played basketball. I was a three-sport athlete. So I played basketball, volleyball, and I ran track through my sophomore year. And then when my mom and I moved down to Duncanville, Texas, I played basketball and volleyball. And I remember when I went to the track coach, I was like, look, I don't want to run. I just want to throw the discus and the shot put. That's all I want to do. And I don't want to do any like track. I don't want to do any sprints. And track coach was like, no, I need you to do, some of the running events. And I think I was in the 4x100 when I was my sophomore year, in the relays. And she was like, I want you to be a part of the relays. And I was like, I just want to throw the shot put and throw the discus. That's all I want to do. And it's like, nope, I need you to do both. So I was like, I'm just going to stick with basketball and volleyball. But, what a blessing. So junior year we won. Sophomore year before I left Chicago, my sister and I, we led Stevenson, the Lady Patriot, to a championship on the basketball court. And then my junior year, first year in Duncanville, we won a championship in volleyball. And then senior year, we won a championship in basketball. So needless to say, it's very, very fun being at Duncanville and, just being able to play and being able to be a multi-sport athlete.
Well, I saw the smile pop on your face when I said Duncanville. So a ton of pride in all aspects of that moment in your life. And while you were at Duncanville, the revered Pat Summitt came knocking, I'm sure with plenty of other coaches as well, to entice you to take your talents to their respective universities. What was it that separated Tennessee for you and that huge decision? That's a very impactful, pivotal decision in a student athlete's life.
Well, I saw Pat when I was in 8th grade. So I think about seventh grade, I made the goal to be in the NBA and follow my dad's footsteps. Eighth grade, first time I saw Pat Summit, but first time I saw Tennessee, first time I saw women on national TV playing basketball. And I was just like, man, I was in awe. Like, oh gosh, if I could ever get this good, like if I could ever get good enough for this lady to recognize and want me to play for her university. And then, fast forward, get my first letter from the assistant coaches, Holly Warlick and Mickey DeMoss and Coach Brown, getting a letter from them, posting it up on my wall. Like this is, one day maybe I'll end up at the University of Tennessee. And, Christy, I'll be honest, like my mom moving down to Texas, like we had two of the huge trash cans, like the plastic trash can full of college letters. And my mom, we wrote letters to every single coach that sent me a letter. We sent them a letter. And my mom had me do like top 20, top 15, top 10, top 5, did my recruiting visits and all that stuff. But she made me write letters to every single school. And just when I chose to go to Tennessee, it really was about my sister. I went to Illinois because that's where my sister went on a recruiting visit. And our goal was to play together in college. But when I went to Illinois, my sister was like, your heart is at Tennessee. And the reality is you're going to have to be here a year without me. So go where you want to go. And she basically opened the door and gave me like the key to be able to say, you know what? I've been dreaming about Tennessee since 8th grade and that's where I want to go.
Oh man. What were your other choices? Your top 5? What were your top 5 schools coming out of high school?
I visited 4. I went to Arkansas with Coach Blair. I love Coach Blair. I went to Southern Cal, and Tina Thompson. They were like my sheroes, right? Like, ooh, I'm gonna go to Southern Cal just to see. And then I went Illinois and Tennessee. So those were the 4 that I visited, and Tennessee was definitely the top.
That was it. So I'm trying to do the math with years without telling what year I came out of Maryland, but we played Tennessee.
Oh, where did you go to college? Where did you go?
I mean, it's just a little bit over here, but we played Tennessee in the Final Four, and Tennessee beat us. So you probably got inspired by watching them during that time. If I'm doing the math right, you said you were 8th grade, so everybody else can do the math. I'm not going to tell it, but yeah, you probably watched that game. But anyway, I digress. Getting back to it, but when you finished your career at Tennessee, you were on that team where you were undefeated, and you were on the team with the 3 Meeks, Tamika Randall, Shamika Holesclaw, and Tamika Catchings. The 3 Meeks was like a thing back in the day. What was that like to go undefeated and win a championship and cut nets with Pat Summit, something that you had envisioned when you were in middle school?
Yeah, crazy. Getting to Tennessee freshman year, like Shamika was one of the main reasons I went. Like I love Pat, and I always said I want to play with the best, and I want to play for the best, and I want to be able to play against some of the other best. And so like going to Tennessee gives you all of that. But Shamika, I remember my recruiting visit, it was just kind of like, you're in awe of somebody, you're just like watching them from afar, like, oh, she's like the greatest thing ever. But the funny thing is how we got to the 3 Meeks. Shamika was there before us, right? So our freshman year, she was a junior. And remember, Pat was like, hey, Meek. And all 3 of us would look like, which one? Which Meek are you talking to? So like, that's how it became the 3 Meeks. And so my nickname became Catch. Randall. Okay. So Shamika became the glove because defensive stopper. And then Meek is like the original. She's the original Meek. We're all just trying to be like her. But I mean, it was great. It was great. And I think just having to go against Shamika, I just remember plenty of times that I would be the one guarding her. And I'm like, okay, like I'm going to lock her down. And it's like, you feel like you got her in a position where there's no way she can score. And then, like me could just like, she's so smooth and she would just rise up and knock down the shot. So, the 3 Meeks, we made it hard for each other. In practice, it was hard. And, I think that's the beginning of having a great team, when practices are harder than the games. And every single day, freshman year, I just remember somebody came out of practice bleeding. On the court, we were totally different than off the court, but I loved it. I loved every single moment of it.
Oh, that's such an amazing story. I didn't know about the differentiating of the meets. That was great to know. But I remember Pat Summit and those steely blue eyes and that grit and that passion that she presented on the sidelines, obviously not in the locker room with her like you were, but there was just something that she did for our game that we will be forever grateful for. What is the one thing that you will always hold with you about your experience at Tennessee with Pat Summitt?
Well, I think she challenged us at so many different levels. I think, when we talk about somebody being able to be and to play and operate at your best, I share this all the time, but Pat wasn't just so focused on us being our best on the basketball court. She wanted us to be the best in the community. She wanted us to be the best, in school, like getting our education, obviously on the basketball court. But the biggest thing, she just wanted us to be the best people and not being just known as a student athlete or just as the basketball player. And so I think that's something that I've taken, but beyond all of that, like just giving 100%. She would not settle for less than 100. And sometimes, especially for us coming in as freshmen, you don't understand the commitment and the dedication of getting your game to the next level. And that's what I try to even instill in our rookies that come into the W. Like, you don't understand what it takes to play at this level. Like, you made it up to 8th grade, and then you go back to the bottom as a freshman in high school. You make it all the way to your senior year, and then you go back to the bottom, as a freshman. And then you get all the way to your senior year in college, and then you get to the pros, and you're basically a freshman as a rookie. But it's a whole nother level that you're not used to. So Pat would always say, like, give 100%. And sometimes we didn't know what 100% was, but she made sure that she got it out of us.
I remember stories, with Chris Weller at Maryland, the pioneers, if you will, of our women's game. And I remember her telling us stories because she and Pat were very good friends. And she would say that, there would never be any jump balls called in practice at Tennessee. And I think that's what you were alluding to when you were saying that you guys would be bleeding and scratched and all that, because it was, hey, there's no whistle. We're not stopping play. It's whoever's going to get that ball wants it the most. Is that really what happened? Or was she just trying to motivate us to telling us stories that way?
It's called the animal drill.
Okay.
And you just keep going, and you don't stop until you have the ball. You don't stop until the ball is headed the other direction. But, I think that's what some of the players nowadays, they don't have that grit. They don't have that fight. And that drill really, it was like, the one we're all about scores, right? So whoever had the most points, whoever got the ball most, didn't have to run. And as simple as not having to run brought all of that out of us. But it was just, like, I'm the animal. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win in everything.
Right. Oh man. So it was true. Okay. So Coach Willer, you're off the hook. We thought she was, manufacturing something to get us
maybe a little crazy.
That's perfect. That's perfect. But I know, you were talking about, going through each year and getting to your senior year and starting again. So your senior year at Tennessee, unfortunately, you suffered an injury and you were drafted into the WNBA 2001, but your actual rookie year in the WNBA was 2002. What was that moment of your life like to have that adversity at that time when you're getting ready to take that big next step?
It was a blow. It was devastating in the moment. I mean, we were playing against Mississippi State. I think there was like 3 minutes left in the game, 3 minutes left in the second quarter, right before halftime. Came down on the right side, did it in and out around half court, came to a jump stop right underneath the basket, and just felt something in my knee and didn't know what it was. And, trainer took us back, Jenny Moshak, and literally I'm sitting in the training room waiting for the doctor to come. And I'm like, Jenny, just tape it up. I'll be fine. Just put some tape around it. Like, we play through this, right?
Right.
Like, no, the doctor needs to come. And doctor did the test and found out that I tore my ACL. And I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, January 1, 2001. Or January 2001. And I just was like, oh my gosh, we're 3 months, literally 3-4 months away from the WNBA draft. And like, nobody's going to want me. That's what I kept saying. Nobody's going to want me. Nobody wants an injured player. And this is like my goal in 7th grade was to be in the NBA. The WNBA started my freshman year in college. So like it changed from the NBA to the WNBA. And now here we go. Like, it's like you see the light at the tunnel and then boom, it goes out.
Man.
So devastating in the moment. But my faith is a huge part of who I am. And literally halftime came, the whole team came in, everybody's crying. And Pat gets them, they go back into the locker room, get ready for the second half. And I just remember sitting in there and I heard God. And he was like, I got you. I got you. And I was like, I got you. Like, what does that mean? You got me. And I'm supposed to be going to the WNBA in a couple of months. This is not you got me. But
Wow.
I started getting passages and letters, from UConn fans of all fans, right? I got some UConn, I got some Tennessee, I got a lot of letters from a lot of players and a lot of phone calls and, people just encouraging me and telling me to lean into my faith. And that's what I did. And, thank God I did, because came back, moved up to Indiana, went to the draft, got drafted in Indiana and moved up here and haven't looked back since. I'm still here.
I love that so much because, people don't really tell the story of the underbelly. Everyone sees the shiny accolades, but they don't see the iceberg that's under the surface of the water, right? And all of the challenges that are presented there. But when you did finally get to the WNBA and having that struggle to sit out your rookie year, but that 2002 season, you were amazing on the court. I don't know if you remember, I definitely do, because I knew who you were. You had no idea about me, but you came to DC and we sat down and did an interview and you told me that Alonzo Mourning was your favorite player. You don't remember. It's fine. But I'm just going to tell everybody, listen. And I was sitting there and I was so amazed by that. And you were gushing about how hard he worked and like everything that he presented in the game. And just fast forward for a second, because we're going to come back to, your time during the WNBA, but to have him present you as a Naismith Hall of Famer with Dawn Staley, I mean, I was in tears, like just with joy, not sad. But I was sitting there watching that because I remember the story you told in 2002, sitting in the arena in DC, and you were just this bubbly kid who was just anxious and ready to play at all times, would run through a wall. And I was just, because Zoe was like from the DMV, like he went to Georgetown. I'm in the DMV, like I've known Alonzo when he was in high school and everything like that. And then you said Alonzo Mourning, and I was like, wow, like out of nowhere. But it was really great to have that connection with him for you, because I could see the work ethic, the fire that he played the game with was evident in everything that you did on the court.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And Zoe has been my favorite player. So I talked about my letter that I got from Tennessee.
Right.
That went on my wall, like I had Alonzo everything. I had every Charlotte Hornets piece of attire, like literally everything that you can imagine I had. And the sweatshirt, the jacket. I mean, we found a picture of me and my jacket, like my favorite Charlotte Hornet pullover is just awesome. But Zoe was the reason. I mean, the way that he played really, for me, it gave me like, I want to play like him.
Right.
I want to be able to give to my team whatever they need at whatever point they need it. And that's what Zoe represented for me and just watching him.
That was truly amazing. Just that whole full circle for me personally was like, oh my gosh, I remember she said, and then there he is sitting there. That took me there. That had me all the way gone that night for the Hall of Fame speech. It was beautiful and riveting, that speech.
And what a cool, I mean, I remember calling him last year to ask him if he would be one of my presenters. And, you have to ask somebody that's been in the Hall of Fame. And, obviously Pat would have been my first choice.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, so if it's not Pat, who has been the most inspirational for me in my journey? Mm-hmm. And when I look at it, it really is Dawn and Zoe. I mean, they have been the two players that have helped me through my journey, have helped me rediscover myself. And I think Zoe, one thing that I haven't really shared, I'm like, one of the things that I've continue to talk about him and just how inspirational he's been. I think he showed me that there was somebody, like he gave me somebody that I could look at and say, like, I can bring this out of me. Right. And I can be, a great player and a great team player and give everything to my team the way that, like, watching him in the way that he was.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. No doubt. And he's still doing that. down in Miami and with the school and everything. So it's such an inspiration in so many ways with what he's been able to do after playing. Same with you. But during your time in the WNBA and what you were able to accomplish, I mean, 5 times you were named Defensive Player of the Year, 10-time All-Star. You were Rookie of the Year, as I said, in 2002. But the culmination of all that was obviously winning the championship. When you won the championship in Indiana, spent all 15 of your seasons wearing a Fever uniform. But what was that moment like to fight so hard? And you had injuries throughout that time prior to winning that championship, not just your rookie year, but you were in and out sometimes and missed some games, missed some time. But then you cut that net. And you just, I mean, it was an amazing moment to watch for people who understood your journey, right? From elementary school to going overseas in Italy for a little bit, and then going to different high schools, and then boom to Tennessee and rocking, and then hitting that senior year adversity, and then rocking in the WNBA the way that you did. But the championship was a defining moment for all of your fans. What was it like for you?
Defining moment is a great way to put it. Previous, I think it was what they did, the top 10 or top 10, I think it was. Top 10 or top 15, I can't remember, in San Antonio.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember, like, we had to come through the fans, and, we were coming down the stairs, and the announcer was like, and so 3 WNBA championships and and all the accolades. And then the next person, and so with 2 WNBA championships.
Oh.
And they would come down, and Tamika Catchings. And I just came down, and I was just, in that moment, I was like, I cannot retire without winning a WNBA championship.
That's right.
And, the fight and the drive. And I think, and I said this to our players all the time, we just expect that we're going to come into the WNBA, that we're going to come to a team, and that we're going to ride this white horse to a championship. And it doesn't happen that way. It's a grind, and it's an everyday commitment. And it's what you do in the off season. It's what you do in your off time. It's how you devote time to your body and getting the right. I mean, there's so many things that play into you individually being prepared, but then what you do individually become collectively as part of a team, and being able to win and get that journey to the championship. So thinking about 2012, crazy. I mean, the highs and lows of that season, just even as you get to the playoffs, losing Katie Douglas, losing Jeanette Poland, and then getting to the playing against Minnesota, and everybody's like, there's no way that this team win a game. There's just no way. I remember, I'm like, gosh, they didn't even give us one game. They didn't even say we would win one game. So when we won the first game, everybody was like, oh, it's a fluke. Right. No, they won't win. They won't win any more games. And then Jeanette gets hurt game 2. We lose that game. Then we come back to Indy. And, I go in that moment, I thought back to 2009. We were up 2 games, 2-0. We go back to Phoenix, and Phoenix ends up winning the series. And I was like, this will not be a repeat of that. We will do whatever it takes. And everybody came out. I mean, it's about people stepping up in the moments when you have an opportunity. You got to step up, and you got to play your role, and everybody has to rise to that level.
If you don't sound like Pat Summitt, Tamika right there, Van, listen. Oh my goodness.
I did play for her.
Wow. That's beautiful. It's beautiful, but it's what you've learned, and it just shows the evidence of the seeds that she continues to plant in our game, for sure. I mean, it's just riveting to me. I'm just a fly on the wall, but I feel that energy in you, and I love that. But when you retired from playing in the WNBA, you have Catch the Stars organization that you have had, throughout your playing career. But is that something now that you can kind of throw yourself into, obviously with being in the front office there with the Indiana Fever as well? But like you said about Pat Summitt, just being great in the community and having the Catch the Stars organization running in your name and being in the front office and being such a great representative to so many who may be looking at you like you were looking at Chamique Holtzclaw and Pat Summitt when you were a young teenager.
Yeah, definitely, Christy. I mean, our foundation, it's been great. We started it, my sister and I started it 2004, and we've been celebrating 17 years. But, one thing that I always say, and I tell all of our players, not just our younger players, at some point you will retire. And when everybody always asks, like, oh man, like, what's the greatest thing about being a professional athlete? Of course, the thing that I miss the most is the relationships and the friendships and the bus rides and, the plane trips and just really us being together and having those moments together. I never want really talk about the on the court stuff because that's part of it, but it's way beyond what I miss is way beyond what we did. And it's the same thing as a player. It's 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. There's going to be a lot of people that don't remember Tamika Catchings, the player. And they remember all the other things that, not just having a foundation, but now like I'm an entrepreneur. I own 2 tea shops. So we just opened up another location, Tease Me Cafe, Catch the Stars Foundation. We just gave out over $100,000 in scholarships just this year. That's not even counting the other years that we've been doing it. So, just the impact that we've been able to make. And the thing for me is, even with all the programs that we have, we focus on fitness, literacy, and youth development. But even through all the programs that we have, the kids that will go through it, hopefully one day when they look back at a pivotal moment in their life, they'll think of one of the programs as being part of their journey. And they'll think like, I want to pay it forward. Pat had us in the community and my parents before that, my father being an NBA player, we did a lot of stuff in the community. They planted a seed for me along the way and for my brother and my sister. And now it's just like, okay, like I'm in a position, I have a platform where I can turn around and give it to somebody else and they can turn around and give it to somebody else. And the youth, they are our future. And Lord willing, one day I know your kids I'm watching pictures of them like, I can't believe how big they are.
It's insane how fast. 19, 17, 14, Tamika.
That's crazy. I remember I remember when you were yay little. I remember you bringing them to the games and them just sitting like three what is it called, like 3 peas in a pie, just sitting right there. Boom, 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 like, you guys don't move.
That's right. Oh, I stay right there.
Yeah, but Lord willing, I'll have kids one day, and hopefully one of the kids that we've been able to touch will be the ones that will be helping my kids and helping them in their journey. And I always think about that.
Oh, absolutely. And I know, you spoke about your husband at the Hall of Fame speech, and we're going to go right to that right now because I just thought, the entire speech was riveting. And I was so engaged with every single word that you said because you just tied a bow on your entire journey and all of the things that you have been able to accomplish. And like you said, not just basketball, but the relationships. And being married is a challenge in and of itself, but it is so rewarding, right? When you can be on the same page and have the same mindset with what you want to do in life in terms of being impactful in that way. How has marriage changed you?
Marriage had changed me. It made me just have to reshift focus. I think to be at an elite level, you have to be selfish in a standpoint. You have to be committed. You have to, you just have to stay focused. And I always wanted to be the best. I still want to be the best. I want to be the best in being a general manager, best in being a VP. I want to own the best tea shop, period. I want, our foundation to continue to operate at the best level. And, 5-star, I always say, like, you look at the stars, like 5-star capacity. And so I think that, to me, like when I think about marriage, it just made me involve and engage him. And, like we've been on this journey together and I think all the things that I've accomplished, and even with the tea shop, I turned to him to ask him, do you think I can do it? Is it something that, like, I don't want to get into something that I shouldn't be doing, for one, because it takes time away from, our time together. But what do you think about it? And I think it really allowed me to have somebody, I can piggyback off of him. He can piggyback off of me. I am like, I got to do this and I got to do that and I got to get here. And he is very steady. And so at times when my mind is racing and there's things that are going on, he can sometimes be the one that's steady. Well, not sometimes. He is the one that steadies me. And, it's like, okay, like you don't have to do all that. Like, let's just be still for a moment, like just be in the moment, be still.
That is the key. And it's easier said than done because when you're uber competitive, you don't want to sit down because you think that's going to give somebody else an advantage. That's just how the mind works that way when you've been so competitive for so long. So I get that. But in your Hall of Fame speech, I mean, you were just so profound with your journey and through the WNBA and what the WNBA means right now. And, you know, I'm wearing the 25-year shirt. The WNBA in 25 years has changed how, and what do you think it will look like moving forward 25 years?
Well, I think the interest right now is at a level and will continue to build, but I think we're at a great point where we are celebrating 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's crazy when you look back to the beginning, to 25 years ago. And, you know, I was in college and it's just like, oh man, this is a goal of mine. Like, it's just brand new. They got 4 years to get it right before I graduate and get into the W. Well, you got kids now that literally this is all they know. And so they're outside, they're practicing, they're, you know, going to the colleges and preparing themselves for the journey to be a WNBA player, to be a professional player. So I think the talent level, you know, definitely better and will continue to elevate as we get more and more young girls into wanting to play basketball. And then I just think like the viewership had gone up this year.
Yes.
Not that I'm satisfied because I want it to keep going up. You know, the merchandise, I feel like the merchandise sales and just like what we've been able to do stemming off of last year. And I think Kobe was a huge part of, even with the orange hoodie, making the orange hoodie the #1 bestseller, you know, not just in the WNBA, but just across the board. And, you know, so what he was able to develop between him and Gigi and his impact on the women's game. And then you just kind of fast forward, now you see some of the other guys taking their daughters to games and, you know, just you follow the college players that have had successful seasons. Sabrina coming in, you know, last year, R.A. McDonald coming in this year, and all the other, you know, college graduates that have come into the league this year. It will continue to get better. It will continue to develop. And, you know, I think the next step for the W is adding more teams and, you know, being able to get more of these young ladies opportunity to play in the W and, you know, just to continue to grow our game, the women's game, but continue to grow the W as well.
No doubt about it. And, you know, you spoke about Kobe Bryant there, and I know you said when you all were in first and second grade, it wasn't something that you set out to do, to be on the Olympic team, to play professionally in the WNBA, NBA. But the way the stars aligned for you two, and the fact that you all both went into the Hall of Fame at the same time, of the same year. I mean, looking back now at it, when you were an Olympian, you wore number 10. Kobe wore number 10. You wore number.
I wore, he tried to wear.
Was it after?
Every number I wore, he wore. I wore first. I wore 24 first. And then, you know, I mean, it is what it is.
I was going to say who started that out, but yeah, the 10 and then the 24 in the pro jerseys. But I mean, just to be aligned in that way, what was the last and final interaction that you had with Kobe before the tragedy?
No, it's crazy, Christy, because we always think that we have another day. You know, and I mean, I think for me, what I have realized is there were a lot of times when our past had crossed, like we were in the same space. But it's like, oh, I'll just talk to him next time. Oh, I'll get with him next time, you know? And you never, I mean, we're young, like we're super young.
Yeah.
You never even think that you're not going to get that next time and you're not going to get that next interaction. And, you know, so now like I'm super conscious of telling people that I love them. I'm super conscious of, you know, even my mom dropped me off the other day to catch the bus to Chicago with our team. And it's like, even when she dropped me off in that moment, I'm like, anything can happen. And so making sure that I love you, Mom, get home safe, you know, I'll call you when I get to Chicago. I don't know. It's so, Kobe and I, it's been a while, you know, and the WNBA All-Star game was in Vegas in 2019. I went down there. That's the year Erica Wheeler won the MVP and Candace Dupree was on our team. They both made the All-Star team. And Kobe was downstairs. I remember I was upstairs with Ruthie Bolton, Holyfield, and she was like, oh, there's Kobe, let's go down. And I was like, no, like I'll catch him next. There was like a crowd of people. And I'm like, no, I'll catch him next time. And you don't realize that there won't be a next time. And there won't be another time for us to be in that space. And so I wish I could go back And I wish I could just be like, I was like, gosh, I just came back from up there. I'd just been in the locker room, came all the way up here. I don't want to go back down there,
Right.
But in the moment, it's like, gosh, like, why wouldn't I have just been like, you know what? All right, like, let's go down there.
Right.
And I didn't. So, don't lose the opportunities that you, what I've learned is don't lose the opportunities that you have, and don't take for granted that there will be another day, because anything can happen, and we got to live now and do things now. Just got to go for it.
That's right. And that's what you're doing now as a GM and VP there in Indy, where your heart is after Tennessee, right? And what have you seen as the biggest challenge being a GM and a VP? I mean, you don't have really a blueprint for that. It's kind of like accepting this responsibility. And like you said, I'm just going to go for it right now and be in the moment with it.
Yeah, it's an adjustment. As a player, you have control. I can control the outcome of the game now. I can't control my teammate, but I can go and push myself to another level, and my teammates will follow me. It's different being in a different seat and not having control over the game. You could scream, you can yell. Thank God for the mask right now, because I'm like, oh, what goes on underneath the mask? Because thank God it's covering up my mouth. But
Right.
it's hard. Winning a championship and being a successful team is hard, and building a team is hard. So I think the biggest challenge for me has been control your controllable, and try to make sure that the players know how much I care. And I get in the gym. I'm in the gym all the time with them, not in basketball clothes and suited and booted, but definitely want them to know how much I care, because I think with this generation, the most important thing is that they need to know that you care and that you're there for them. They will run through a wall for you if they know how much you care about them, but you can't instruct them. You can't get on them. You can't, talk to them in a way that, in any way really, until they know how much you care. And so for me, it's really been, the positive is building a relationship. The negative is not being able to control what's going on the court.
Right. Well, lucky for them that you were suited and booted and not wearing your basketball stuff. So
thought about it. So I thought about coming out of retirement plenty of times. I'm like, I don't want to hurt myself.
Right. You like the regular boots. I get it. But this has been so rewarding to catch up with you, to say the least. I know that you are faith driven. If there is one thing that you can conclude our conversation with that maybe someone needs to hear, or something that you have relied upon over your journey, what would that be?
I'd say dream big. And I know it's cliche, you hear that all the time, but 7th grade, I made my first goal to be a professional basketball player. 8th grade, I made a goal to, play for Pat Summitt. And without having those goals, and even now, my goal is to win a championship, to win a WNBA championship in 3 years, this being year one. And I think being able to say it, being able to put it out there in the atmosphere, also realizing it's going to take a lot of hard work. Yes. So dream big, know that you're going to have to work super hard for your dream to come true, but it makes it that much more rewarding when you look back and you're like, man, we did that. We did it as a team. We built the right team, just the people that were around me. That helped to the success, but always dream big, work hard. And as KG always said, anything is possible.
That's right. That is right. And so true. And I will just leave you with this. I still can't hear the Rocky Top song without feeling some kind of way. But you're going to sing it.
Home, sweet home to me. Good old Rocky Top. Woo! You know the rest.
No, it's all love. And I know that will always be in your heart. And you will always be in my heart. I love you so much for joining us today on Christy's Court on the Field of 68 Network. Tamika, I hope we see each other sooner than later so I can get one of your patented tight hugs. I need one of those from you, my dear. But thank you so much for joining us today and taking the time to chat.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Christy. This has been fun.